The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to the Deadlines, Defensibility, and Dollars Best Practice for Service Providers webinar. This webinar will be presented by Jim McGann and Jeff Cooper. Jim is the Vice President of Marketing at Index Engines and has extensive experience with eDiscovery and information management in the Fortune 2000 sector. Jeff Cooper is a solutions architect at Index Engines with extensive experience in eDiscovery and litigation support technology. Please type any questions for Jim or Jeff in the question area on the right of your screen, and they'll be answered at the end of the webinar. So let's begin. Jim?
Thanks, Jen. Thanks, everybody, for taking the time to join today's session. Today's session will be a combination of a slide presentation followed by a product demo. As Jan mentioned, my name is Jim McGann. I will be joined today by Jeff Cooper, who will be doing the demonstration. If you do have questions, type them in the chat area you'll see there on your right side of your screen, or you can send one-on-one questions. My email address is on the screen there as well. I'll put it up towards the end of today's session. For those of you that are not familiar with Index Engines, we are a information discovery, eDiscovery platform really focused on unified discovery of information for the identification, collection, and management of ESI. Some of the unique features, and I think there's definitely some unique attributes that are worth discussing here, is that Index Engines has a unified approach towards eDiscovery, where in terms of what data sources you're collecting from, we have the widest or the most extensive ability to collect data from not only network data and forensic images, email, and so on, but also backup tapes. Very efficient process, very high-speed, automated indexing solution. The idea is to really streamline your processes and make your jobs a lot easier by letting technology do all the heavy lifting. Also, very cost-effective platform, and we'll talk about some of the different pricing models that we have at the end of today's session. So the challenges that we see and we hear every day when we talk to our partners that are providing eDiscovery services is really in three different areas. One, the complexity of the projects has grown significantly. We're seeing our current partners faced with much larger data collection sets. So we're seeing partners that were doing jobs that were in the small number of gigabytes growing into the hundreds of gigabytes, even terabytes of data. So the data sets have gotten significantly larger with no end in sight. Collecting data from a wide range of sources, including on-site forensic capture. So the sophistication of what our partners are doing has increased significantly. Gone are the days where you receive a bunch of hard drives and it's only a couple 10, 20 gigabytes of data, and now the days are a wide range of sources, including backup tapes, going on site to do forensic capture of email servers, and the volume of data being significant. That said, we're seeing that the time to data, which is kind of a reoccurring theme that we talk about, is challenged. So you're required to do more with less resources. A lot of the people available to do projects, the technology available, the hardware available has really diminished and created a big challenge in terms of the amount of time you have to complete the projects. One of the key challenges we see is multiple projects. So when you're juggling multiple projects, it's kind of either feast or famine. You're buried in managing 3 or 4 projects at the same time. Where next week you may not have anything but a very tiny project. So it's difficult to manage resources and manage technologies and so on when it's hard to predict the projects that will come in the door. Also seeing a lot of manual intervention where data is being moved from one platform to another. You may have a tool to collect data, email data from Exchange, and then you may need to put it in a different tool for culling and deduplication. Then you may need to merge it with another tool that was collecting forensic images. So a lot of manual intervention and moving data throughout the process. Costs are obviously near and dear to your heart. Budgets are tighter than ever. Clients are more demanding. It's a very competitive market, so what you were able to charge years ago, you may not be able to charge today. So, a lot of the cost constraints is really requiring you to obviously do more with less, but just be very efficient with your time and resources. So talking about the first one, deadlines and speed. this is one of those areas that a lot of our customers in the past thought that all technology was the same, all processing speeds were the same. It's kind of hard to explain unless you see it or unless you're really dealing with large volume jobs. But if you're waiting for your data to be indexed, you're not getting your job done. I mean, there's really not a lot you can do while the data is being processed and indexed. So if you're looking at large volumes of data, it really requires high-speed indexing. If you look at one of the more popular tools on the market today, a lot of you have probably experienced this tool, processing at 7 gigabytes an hour. We have technology that can process at a terabyte per hour. So if you're looking at a 500 gigabyte job, which isn't too unusual these days, you're talking 71 hours versus 30 minutes. I mean, now that's kind of a dramatic example. There's tools that are faster, obviously, but if time is of the essence, if you're waiting for indexing to be completed, you're really going to be compromised in terms of how much time you're going to have actually to do the real work. So a lot of the partners, the service providers that we talked to, really haven't evaluated technology in years and really haven't seen these performance improvements. So I think if you kind of turbocharge your lab by putting in high-speed indexing tools, you're able to churn through jobs significantly faster. And one of the benefits of the Octane platform here at IndexEnd is it was architected for those types of jobs. We have corporate jobs that are in the petabytes of data. It's really stuff that the old school technology couldn't even handle. The intelligent culling. So we've built a lot of these features in the product, and just going to show you some of them today, but allow you to really kind of separate the good from the bad. The responsive ESI versus the garbage that you need to leave behind. Unfortunately, less than 1% of what you receive may be the responsive data. Finding that specific content is really the challenge. So there's a lot of automated culling tool capabilities in the system. They're common in a lot of systems to automatically dedupe and denist the data. But there's also a lot of filtering that can be set up automatically to filter selective locations, to filter selective file types, selective custodians, and so on. One of the more powerful features in the system is the ability to pre-populate that information. So using the query, save queries and the archiving or the preservation capability within the Octane platform, you can pre-populate a query, set it up in the system, because if you know that, initially, as you start the project, you can set this up, and this query here is a keyword confidential file type email, looking at email that's sent to John Doe, for example. If you set that up and point it to a specific, what we call collection or archive, what it's going to do is, as the data is being indexed, so you're killing two birds with one stone here, as they say. As the data is being indexed, it'll automatically be collected at the same time. So you're not really having to turn through everything. You're just letting the system index and collect at the same time. So you're kind of double teaming the process here. So especially if you're doing some on-site collections. So if you're taking we have now a new portable solution that can go on site. If you're taking that on site and you've pre-populated these queries, what you're doing is you're indexing the data at the same time, also doing your collection of that content. That's one of the real time savers. We see a lot of our partners that are doing this that are just significantly allowing the system to churn through large volumes of data and kind of cherry picking what they need and preserving that content. The summary reports are also a powerful feature as well. It's a great visual tool that will allow you to rapidly cull large data sets. So I think you're going to see in the reports, and Jeff's going to show those in the demonstration, is that you can have a single unified view or report of that data across all data sets. So if you process data from forensic images, from backup tapes, from email, from network data, you can have a visual view to say, who are all these custodians, what type of data, what's the date ranges of this content, and so on. And the power of the Octane platform is that you can combine reports, or these summary reports, with queries to really refine your culling requests. So here you see this is one of the reports I know Jeff is going to show is it's not a pie chart or anything, but it's really the sender domain reports. So here you can see all the, you filter down to specific email. In this case, the query is all emails sent to John Doe. what I want to do is what are the sender domains that make up that email. So this will allow you to eliminate things like spam email, privileged email, email that has no interest whatsoever. So, and all these reports are active reports. So Jeff will show you some of those active reports, like for posts and things like that, where you can selectively filter the content based on any criteria. So here you can basically eliminate certain content, bulk content, tag it, filter it out, and so on. Another report here, I could, okay, so try to clear my markups here, but you'll have to look through them. Another report here is a pie chart that shows, in this case, hosts by file count. So you can kind of see an idea of the location of the data. So a lot of our clients are using this for, if you go out, go out on site or you get data from, hard drives or different sources, this will allow you to aggregate it together and look at the locations of that content as well. So one of the areas I want to talk about in terms of moving on from deadlines into defensibility is talk about unified workflow. So unified workflow is one of those areas that I think is important to look at. So, if you've been processing client data for many years and you kind of have your processes and your methodology, this workflow is flexible enough that it could fit within your environment, and you could utilize components of it. But we have partners that are working on projects that have adopted a lot of this workflow, which really streamlines the process significantly. And I think one of the areas that had been a concern for them was, the defensibility and the accuracy of these processes. So, if you've been in this business long enough, you know that in some cases there may be some areas where the collection and identification management of ESI hasn't been handled as well as it could have been, and it hurts your client relationship. The fact that service providers really have become, trusted providers for their clients, you really need to focus on that relationship, make sure that your processing is defensible, is accurate, is reliable, and that's one of the things that I think is becoming a top priority for a lot of our partners is really making sure that process is a good one. So I think in the past too, a lot of our partners have come to us before they were working with IndexEngine, had used a lot of tools, many different tools that were kind of cobbled together, or components of technology to really identify and collect data and cull ESI. It's really been prone to error. I mean, the different tools for forensic image, tape, network data, email data, migration of the data between these tools is a less defensible process. And we've seen a lot of cases where a lot of these tools use slightly different MD5 hash algorithms to determine what is a duplicate. And it's hard to defend. I mean, when push comes to shove and your client needs to defend these processes, it becomes very complex and very difficult to go back and develop that audit trail. So the unified workflow, which is we've worked on with our clients, and our clients have given us a lot of feedback on this, really ensures very strong defensibility, provides a very powerful audit trail through the process. The key thing here in the IndexEngine's approach is there's really no migration or conversion of data. I mean, we can extract email data from Exchange, from notes, and not convert it to EML or MSG throughout this entire process until you require native data output. The significant piece here is it's really cost effective to do this. We're not asking you to throw away all the tools that you have in your environment, but if you look at this approach, will it save you costs? Will it accelerate your time to data? Those are decisions you'll need to make. But again, this workflow is extremely flexible that you can pick and choose what you need in order to adapt into your existing workflow and really hopefully accelerate your processing. So this is there's a lot of data on this chart. I'm going to take it piece by piece here and break it down a bit. But if you look at going through the process here on top, through the EDRM workflow from identification down to review and analysis, the key component here, and this is really a unique facet for the IndexEngine's platform, is that it has the ability to connect to many different sources. So as you're dealing, a lot of the times, you're dealing day to day in your tasks and providing services to your clients, you may not see a lot of things like backup tapes. but they are out there. Trust us, they're out there. We see a lot of them. So the fact that your clients are not saying them to you may mean that they know that you don't have the capability to do that, or you haven't really exposed them to that. But I know you do see a lot of network data, email data, forensic images, hard drives, and so on. So having a tool that can process all those common sources, plus the backup tape sources, which become more and more common as day by day, allows you to have a unified tool to collect both your online sources and your offline sources. So that's one of the unique advantages there of the Octane workflow, is you can point to anything that exists out there and index it for processing. The next phase shows you again the flexibility here of how to leverage the index engine's technology. There's really three approaches to deploying the software. So the first one is a new product that we introduced at Legal Tech in the end of January this year, which is really an on-site collection engine. So we have an actual piece of hardware that is portable that can go on-site to your client site in order to capture a forensic snapshot of email and files and any kind of content that's required based on certain criteria. So again, you can pre-populate that query or that culling request in there, index data, and any data that's responsive could be collected in what we call the on-site collection engine and brought back into your lab for processing. So it's a new product becoming very popular in terms of going out on-site and processing data to bring back to your lab for review and analysis. We also have a server that would sit in your lab, which is our Discovery engine. It's a rack-mounted server that would sit there, very powerful technology in order to process data. And that's been around for quite a while for those of you that have been working with us. And then we also have a cloud lab. So the cloud lab allows you to send data to our facility. It's a secure facility that allows you to send things like backup tapes. If you don't see a lot of backup tapes, we recommend you use the cloud lab because you don't need to build up the infrastructure, which is really the tape readers and so on. If you see forensic images that you want to process and you require additional resources, maybe you're under resource constraints or time constraints, and you need some supplemental processing power, you can send them there and they can be processed in our lab in order to do culling and collection of data. So you see there's really three different approaches towards the indexing of the content. And all this stuff could be combined. We have partners that are using all three of these actually together that would combine them in the end in order to have a unified index of the data. The next step is what we call really the pre-processing. So you can do your first pass culling across all sources. So again, if you have a project where you've collected data, from networks and forensic images, for example, by unifying the dedupe, denest, and doing some initial culling here, maybe it's just a mailbox collection, you have a single view across all that content. And one of the important features of the system is that as you're extracting data out, you possibly maybe wanting to extract it out to disk to be moved into your review platform or your legal hold platform, all the data that's been extracted is tracked with unique IDs so that you're not creating duplicates as you process data through the workflow. So the nice thing about this, early in the process here is that you're having a single view across all the different data sources that you've actually done collection from. So here you have a couple options. So again, the flexibility of this workflow is we have a legal hold archive. So if you need to preserve the data, so a lot of our partners are keeping this data and holding on to it. It's a forensically sound copy of the content. It can be cloud hosted. It could be long-term hosted for projects. So I know a lot of the projects you get, the requests or the query requests may change over time, or they may come back after 6 months and ask for additional custodians to be collected. Preserving it and hosting it in this archive ensures that it's available, for future requests, ensure that it's, preserved and reliable as well. So this is a product, it's a fairly new product from us that allows you to do this hosting and this preservation of this content. And these, once the data is archived, it's a bit level copy of the original source. So if you've taken, for example, this on-site collection engine and gone on-site and pointed to an Exchange email server, you could extract specific custodian mailboxes and collect them and it's going to do a bit-level collection of that content, not convert it, and store that stuff in the archive for long-term preservation. Again, never converted to EMLs or MSGs. So the nice benefit of this workflow is, you're all the way in the culling and the preservation phase, and no data has been converted, migrated to different systems, moved, and you haven't worried about corrupting it in metadata or any spoliation of the content whatsoever. So here, this is our whole preservation environment that exists today. Or you can extract it native out to disk. So if you were, for example, had a job where you had some backup tapes, you sent them to our cloud lab, we could dedupe and search across them and do some culling, and then that data could extract out to disk, and you can get the native content, EML, MSG data out. And that's a very light touch of the index engine's Octane platform, but just an effective use if it fits in your environment to be able to go in, get access to data, and pump it directly into your platform. If you're continuing down the workflow, this is actually should be post-processing here. It's a processing phase, which is full culling, and Jeff's going to show you that in the demo, which is full metadata search, full text search, and so on. The dynamic reports, which I showed you earlier, allow you to do some filtering on the data. Also have full text preview, so if you want to just get a quick view of the files and emails or attachments, you can do that here. But again, at this point, any of these two culling stages that you see here in blue, the post-processing or the pre-processing, you're doing it across the entire unified data set of content. And then the final step is review and analysis. So we're not a classic review tool. We can do previews of documents and so on. But if you wanted to integrate to review tools, you can do that. We have integration into relativity, which Jeff I think is going to show you in today's demo, how we can support being able to push content directly into relativity. We also have CSV load files for other platforms as well. We'll be adding other integration solutions over time as well. Or you could extract it here to disk from this point on if you've done some detailed culling. So at any point along the way, you can extract native data to disk. Or if you wanted to, leverage the entire workflow here, again, it's going to accelerate or improve your defensibility. We found that customers, it's improved their cost and their time to data, time to review. It's really, incorporating the fastest indexing platform in the market today with a unified, auditable, defensible, and cost-effective platform. So again, flexibility, you can pick and choose what you need. To get the most advantage out of the platform, using the unified workflow is something that we'd encourage you to take a look at. So in terms of dollars, and I want to go through this pretty quick before we can get on to a demo here. Again, there's been a lot of competition in this space, as you know, over the past 5 or so years. A lot of has really driven price down. A lot of our partners have looked at consolidating multiple tools, in order to have a single, more cost-effective platform. There's a lot of pricing models that I'll talk about that allow you to commit to a vendor to get the best price and the latest technology. So annual commitments or subscription-based allows us to provide you with technology that's the latest and greatest at the most cost-effective pricing. We also have project-based pricing. So a lot of this stuff is required. You really need pay-as-you-go scenarios. So project-based is not as cost-effective as subscription pricing that we have, but it's still pretty attractive on the market today. And subscription-based pricing being the most cost-effective. Cloud services, really more for complementary resources. So if you have the need to process, one of the more popular areas is processing backup tapes. If you've been using more of the high-cost restoration vendors that you've been using for years, I'd encourage you to look at our cloud service to get a very cost-effective and intelligent way to deal with legacy tapes. The custodian pricing is a new solution from us, and I think it's worthwhile to talk about here and to point out. Really what it is based on the custodian. So, the indexing, there's no fee to index the data, so you can index as much as you want, really. You have full access to search data, so it's a full text search. So even though you index it, the data will still remain locked. So you can search, index a terabyte of data. It'll be locked. You can't really see specific files and emails, but you can do full text search and full metadata search, and you'll see responsive hits based as a custodian list. So you can do the search, and you'll say, here are the 20 or the 40 custodians that have relevant hits based on that criteria, and you would pay to unlock those custodians for full access. So it's really a pay for what you need and not for what you index. So we've had partners and service providers that have, gone out there and indexed a terabyte per data. They may be charging per gig to do that, or charging, to index all that content. It can get very expensive, and when you know that you only need 1 or 2 custodians out of there, it's kind of just wasted dollars. So the fact that you can pay for what you need here significantly reduces your costs and your client's costs in terms of doing these jobs. So an example here is when you're doing, and this is actual screenshot of the product. So here you can see I do a keyword search, so keyword confidential here, and the results that come back, and you can see, I don't know if you can really see this, but the results tab here is dimmed, meaning that it's not available. You can't see specific files and email results here. What you see is really just these summary reports. So if I do a keyword here, in this case, there's really 3 custodians that have hits, and it tells you the number of hits here. So there's about 448 or so hits on that keyword search. So what you would do is, do your query, see the responsive custodians, and then you would check off. And here I happen to have all 3 checked. I can only check 1 if I want. In that case, you do that and you hit the unlock button. It's that easy. And by hitting the unlock button, it's going to drive you to this interface, which will list the custodians. And the important point here is that once you unlock these custodians, they're unlocked for the project. They're unlocked for good. So you can, as you process more data, that stuff will remain unlocked and you have access to it. So really the key point here is you're only paying for what you need. So for our partnerships with our clients is we don't make money unless you guys make money and are successful. So we want to have any kind of strategy or pricing model that makes you guys look good. And this is one that we've got lots of very strong interest on because it's very cost effective. So conclusion here, and I'm going to pass it over to Jeff to do a demonstration. Again, I mean, I spent a lot of time talking about the unified platform and the unified workflow. I think we believe strongly in it. We believe that it can help you accelerate your time to data, your cost effectiveness, but it also gives you a very forensically sound, defensible platform that you can deploy. So I think there's a lot of advantages to it. So with that said, I am going to pass it to Jeff Cooper, who's going to take you through a demonstration of the technology to show you how it works. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to jump in, and we'll try to address them as we go through the session.
Okay, so like Jim said, I'm basically just going to take everyone through a real high-level, relatively simple demo that we can do here. For those of you unfamiliar with our product, what we're looking at right now is really our main search page. We have 2 ways of looking at results. We have individual results and summary reports that Jim had mentioned before. I'm going to go ahead and run a blank search here, and we're going to get, so right now we're looking at a lot of email search results. And again, as Jim had mentioned before, I can click on any one of these individual results, and I can see a reconstruction of both, here's some information on the metadata, and then we can see a reconstruction actually of the body of how the email would actually look, how we looked at it in its native format. So really, once we have our search results, what we're ready to do is start culling these down, which we again have a few ways of doing. Over here you can see on our filters, we have keyword searches. So this is by content. This is your normal Boolean operators, your ands, ors, nears, nots, things of that nature. You can plug those into any of these fields and begin your culling process. We can also search on all the metadata fields that we index. So here we have file properties. We have name, owners, signatures, which is the MD5 hash value, created times, modified times, and so on. Additionally, we continue to have document properties. So this is things like your title, your author, dates created, dates modified, and email properties, again, are things like subject, from, to, CCs, BCCs, and again, just more metadata that we can continue our searching process with. So on top of these initial filters, we can also look at queries. So this is where I should mention that if we were doing a collection, This is the screen that he showed that we could put in a specific query. This is just a real simple file type document. So what that would do is we could have that as our predefined collection query. And what we'd have to do is then save that query, name it collect. And after the indexing is done, or as the indexing is going on, this would be the query applied to the data that we just indexed, and that would automatically move it into our collection archive. Finally, we have our location. So this is very useful when we can go into forensic images. We can go into Exchange databases and drill down to more than just a mailbox level, but just a folder within that mailbox. So what I'm doing here is I'm looking at two of these forensic images that we've indexed. And these are different partitions, and what we can also see is the file structure that these forensic images had. So I can keep drilling down, and I can search on just one or a few of these different folders that are found within these images. I'm going to pull these back up. And what we also have here is an Exchange database, like I mentioned. So we can pull down here. We can see the different owners and the different mailboxes associated with this Exchange database. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a search on just this database. And again, we'll see the individual results pop up over here. Of course, there's none. But we can get, again, we can get, oh, because I had the dot file. Again, we can have the summer reports, and this is compiling about 17 different summer reports that will show different views of the data. We can look by owners, as Jim mentioned, sender domains, last modified times, last access times, several different metadata fields that we've already indexed. And now we can just look at in kind of a high-level summation, I guess we'll say. So this is running a few different queries. This should be done in just a couple seconds. And I'll be able to show you different views we have. So here's the first default one. This kind of goes in and shows by file type, counts by file type. So again, we have some PST messages, and this will rank them from most to least. PST messages, XLSs, HTMLs. So we can, again, look at different types of messages that we want to look at. So I can change this over to, say, an owner's report. And here, the great part about these is I can cull as I'm looking at these. So if I just want to look at John Doe's email boxes, I can now update that search, and now I'll only be looking at his information. I can continue to build these queries out over here. As you'll see, you can learn our query language. As you add these filters and different content keyword searches, the query will update itself, and you can kind of learn the language we use. So again, I can come over here and look at sender domains, and we'll see all the sender domains that were associated with these results. So again, we can continue to call down, get rid of spam, get rid of privileged information, and I can get these results to be even further. And again, this will update over here. So again, I can run another search, and as you can see, I'm culling down to less and less results as I go along. So what we can do is come back over here to our results. Once we have the number of these results that we'd like, we can start tagging these results for with whatever you want to give. You can give a different tag to each one. You can give more than one tag to a file. So this can, now you see a demo tag. I could add demo tag 1 through 100 on the same file, so it would be responsive to several different searches. And something I missed before with the filters is that I can add tags. So I can now search by any of these tags. So if I found responsive data and I want to find that quickly, I can quickly find that tag, search by it, and have the results I'm looking for almost immediately. So another thing Jim mentioned was now we'll be able to extract. So it's as simple as selecting the file that you'd like to extract and clicking the extract button that was up here. You give it some simple information, a description, a destination, where to send it, a username and password if necessary, click submit, and those files will either be extracted to disk or to anywhere that you'd like to go. Also, in the same screen, we have the functionality that Jim mentioned of giving it a relatively load file. So here, you can select this box, give it a prefix for your load file, specify the number of digits for the document IDs, and again, give it the simple information of destination, username and password if necessary, and a description. Click submit, and again, you're creating a relatively load file. I believe at this point that is really the high-level demo that we need to show you. That's just our basic functionality from a real easy standpoint, I guess. If there's anything else, I guess we'll have questions at the end, but I'm going to hand this back over to Jim.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. And the important point here is, as Jeff was extracting this content out, is, this content could be in forensic images, a PST in forensic images, it could be in a EDB, in a backup tape, and so on. The idea is that the Octane platform will go get it wherever it is and extract it. But if you've leveraged the collection archive capability, then you've got a bit-level forensic snapshot of that content in the collection that it's going to be extracting from. And the nice thing about that is if you have it in that collection or that archive, you can host that and preserve that long-term for your clients and manage it for them. Because as you know, a lot of these times these requests, these queries changes, and instead of having to go back to the original source, you'll have a copy of that content if you kind of over-collected on that data. Okay, so thanks, Jeff. So one of the points I want to raise here for those of you that have worked with index engines before is we have our current release is release version 4.5 has been available for a few weeks now. That includes the relativity support. It includes this preservation or collection archive capability, the custodian pricing that I talked about during the session. One of the new features that was just added, we call user profiles. That's the ability to manage access to your data based on roles. So if, for example, you collect a significant volume of data and you wanted to provide a certain subset of that data to your client or legal teams for review, you could tag a subset of the data and create a login ID for them to get access to a specific subset of content. We also incorporated OCR support, so for scanned documents, PDFs, TIFFs, things like that, what it'll do is it'll do convert the scanned document to text and attach the text as a metadata field to the document and index it, making it searchable. So that's available in the product as well. I mentioned the on-site collection server is a hardware platform that allows you to wheel on-site appliance that allow you to do indexing on-site. And then finally, high-speed forensic image indexing. So you don't need to mount forensic images. You can scan them on disk at very high speed. So a lot of the stuff some of the stuff has been announced for a little bit. Some of it's newer. It's just to give you a recap of what's there in 4.5, and just showing that we have a pretty aggressive development schedule that's constantly putting out new capabilities, new products and new features. Okay, we're up at our deadline here, so if you do have questions, my email address is there. I can get the questions to either myself or to Jeff or whoever is the appropriate person. If you do want a copy, there's a white paper that goes along with this presentation called the 3 Ds for service providers, defensibility, dollars, and deadlines. I can get you a copy of that as well. If you wanted to go deeper into the product and see more details on how it works, or specifically talk about your needs or your requirements, we'd be happy to schedule a one-on-one session for you at a later date. So again, sorry I'm not able to take any questions live today, but if you do have them, please send us a note and we will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you for your time today. I hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to speaking with you in the future.